I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear.
In the shadow of COVID and the aftermath of chaos.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
The United States gets its 46th president.
Good evening, I'm Andrew Chang.
And I'm Adrienne Arsenault. A 2021 U.S. inauguration to match the national mood.
You, the American people, are the reason why. I've never been more optimistic about America than I am this very day.
Joy and celebration, yes, but also plain relief and some bitter resentment.
Is Joe Biden a match for his nation's wounds?
Racial injustice, economic inequality, a cultural divide.
My whole soul is in this, bringing America together, uniting our people.
He's known as a conciliator, but are Americans ready to reconcile?
Kamala Harris might help.
We are undaunted in our belief that we shall overcome, that we will rise up.
She is history-defied.
But the challenges and grievances of history pull hard at new presidents. So, again, is Joe Biden a match for his nation's wounds?
And are Americans ready to reconcile? The test begins right away. This is a special edition of The National.
For the United States, this is a moment of transition, the end of the Trump presidency, the beginning of Joe Biden's.
After a day of ceremony, the night ended with celebration, the new U.S. president and vice president hoping to set a new tone from the top.
This is a great nation. We're a good people. And to overcome the challenges in front of us requires the most elusive of all things in a democracy, unity.
And that call for unity is for a country divided. Biden, the oldest ever to take the oath of office, bearing the promise of a more traditional presidency, while at the same time with Vice President Kamala Harris signaling change.
Even in dark times, we not only dream, we do. We not only see what has been, we see what can be.
Harris's message tonight was hopeful. You'll hear how this administration breaks some barriers as it confronts others. We'll also consider how the former president reaches for relevance as the new president moves rapidly away from that legacy.
So our reporters are standing by. They have been all day with that and more. We have comprehensive coverage for you tonight as the United States enters this new chapter. And so let's go now to our senior correspondent, Susan Ormiston. I know you watched it all unfold. We were watching you so close to the Capitol. You had an amazing perch in this for this big day, and you know, for those of us watching, and not just for him.
Yeah, an extraordinary day, Adrienne. I mean, you just heard from Kamala Harris at the Lincoln Memorial tonight, echoing Joe Biden's words all day, which was to implore Americans to get together and unite. A soaring national anthem. Lady Gaga reminding Americans what draws them together rather than cleaves them apart.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President-elect of the United States,
Joe Biden with wife Jill arrived at the Capitol, a second home, but on this day surrounded by troops and carrying the stain of an insurrection.
I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear.
With his oath comes the weight of multiple crises, including the millions of Americans who consider his presidency illegitimate.
Take a measure of me and my heart. If you still disagree, so be it. Yet hear me clearly. Disagreement must not lead to disunion.
Biden pledged to fight domestic terrorism and build racial justice.
The dream of justice for all will be deferred no longer.
While conceding that unity at this moment may sound like a foolish fantasy, Biden appealed to America.
This is our historic moment of crisis and challenge, and unity is the path forward. We must end this uncivil war.
COVID safety meant a slim guest list, giving the ceremony an air of an intimate party, albeit with 3 former presidents, and Vice President Mike Pence, who awkwardly filled a void left by his boss, who refused to show. The new Vice President, Kamala Harris, and the second gentleman, get used to that,
I, Kamala Harris, solemnly swear.
who watched proudly as she secured her place in history, the first Black and South Asian and female VP. But that soaring achievement missed an in-person, triumphant response, a casualty of COVID. There was a poetic moment from the oldest president to the youngest poet laureate, Amanda Gorman, who charmed the audience.
When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade?
With the 46th president today, there was simply less me and more us. Joe Biden will move very quickly on his agenda on key things like climate change, immigration, and putting a national structure around the coronavirus, pushing out much of what Donald Trump brought in, as if ushering that chaotic presidency out the door. And one grasp at an unscripted moment as Joe ran with his family, including the grandchildren, up to the White House. The Bidens are moved in now.
So, Susan, this is clearly the day for tone, for, the show of it all, but also the work, the hard work starts now. Today gets a pass, not tomorrow.
Yes, that's true. And, it's aspirational. Yes, celebration tonight, but we've still got a blocked off downtown Washington for this inauguration. Joe Biden signed 15 executive orders already today, including embracing the World Health Organization again and putting the U.S. back on track with the Paris Climate Accord. Also, we're learning that President Trump did leave a letter in the Oval Office for now President Biden. Biden's read it. He said it was generous, but he won't give us any details yet about what Trump told him on his way out.
So tantalizing. Susan Ormiston in Washington tonight. Thank you for that.
Okay, let's turn now to Katie Simpson at a very quiet Freedom Plaza. Katie, can you take us through your unusual day in D.C.?
Well, it is very quiet here, and that's what officials were actually hoping for. The United States may not exactly be known for being quiet, but given the security concerns, given COVID, that's exactly how they'd hoped it would go, and it seemed rather fitting. To welcome the president in these strange times, a subdued scene like no other in Black Lives Matter Plaza.
Once-in-a-century virus.
A few dozen people stand near a speaker as Joe Biden's speech is broadcast live, while others watched on phones.
We were expecting it to be a lot different and a different experience, but regardless, nonetheless, I think we're so happy to just be in the presence.
The Fenton family traveled to D.C. from California, determined to be here even after the deadly Capitol attack.
It was really my aunt who led the charge, and she said, no, I'm tired of being afraid and trying to have a government lead us in fear. We wanted hope. We wanted to feel hope.
More than 25,000 National Guard troops patrolled the streets, most of which had already been closed for days out of an abundance of caution. Areas that would normally be packed with revelers stood empty, save for police officers and soldiers who did not appear to be too worried about any imminent threats. Americans were asked to stay home, not only amid security concerns, but also because of the pandemic. 200,000 flags lined the National Mall in place of spectators. And a virtual parade with celebrity hosts took the place of traditional in-person events. For the few lucky enough to participate in this historic moment, it is something to one day tell their kids and grandkids about.
It's amazing. It feels like a dream, honestly. I've been excited for this for months.
These students from the Howard University Marching Band escorted the new vice president to the White House, a proud moment as Kamala Harris is a fellow graduate.
It means the world, and I'm so glad that she was able to break a barrier in government for colored people. It's for us to move forward and do bigger and better things.
I think that we're all excited to see what she'll do and all of the things that she promises. We're very excited to see her take position.
It's a day of hope and optimism for these women who would prefer to focus on the future rather than the immediate past. Donald Trump's on his way out right now. Do you have any parting message for the president on his way out?
I do not. I am good. Bye, Don.
Okay, those few words speak volumes. Katie, what of the security presence there? I mean, they were bracing for the worst. What's happening with it?
Well, we just saw dozens and dozens of members of the National Guard actually leave this area. Where the last news crew left here, there hasn't been anyone walking around. As we said last time, it's just us and the rats out here. We've seen 3 of them so far. DC has a really bad rat problem, so it's clearing out. It's pretty quiet.
Yikes. Okay, good to know. Katie Simpson, thank you very much.
All right, so instead of attending the inauguration, Donald Trump left the White House hours earlier this morning for the last time as president.
Mr. President, do you have any regrets about your presidency?
Do you have any regrets about your presidency? A question asked but not answered. The outgoing president and first lady departed for Joint Base Andrews, where Air Force One was waiting to take them on one final trip to Florida. Now, Trump made one final address before boarding, and there was a definite suggestion that the world has not seen the last of Donald Trump. Stephen D'Souza joins us from Palm Beach. So, Stephen, obviously an unusual exit for an unusual president. Walk us through his final hours as president.
Donald Trump's time as president was one where he constantly was breaking the political norm, so it came as no surprise to anyone today that he skipped inauguration, got out of Washington, D.C., and came to his new home here in Florida. Donald Trump arrived in his new hometown to a hero's welcome from those who still consider him their president.
I'm a law-abiding citizen. I'll go along with the laws, but in my heart, I believe President Trump won it, yes.
These supporters represent the divide Joe Biden faces in unifying Americans.
We survived a civil war, and we will continue to survive, even though I do not believe that this is a legitimate president. However, I respect the office he holds, and I will respect the person in it.
Before leaving this morning, Trump spoke one last time to supporters as commander-in-chief.
I wish the new administration great luck and great success. I think they'll have great success.
Last night, Trump issued a series of pardons before leaving office, including one to his former strategist Steve Bannon. Trump didn't mention those this morning, just as he did not acknowledge his lie that the election was stolen from him.
So just a goodbye. We love you. We will be back in some form.
He'll now take up residence at his private club in Palm Beach. There are legal challenges coming, a Senate impeachment trial, and possible criminal charges. There's also talk he could start a new media company, or even his own political party. That's welcome news to those here who want the Trump political brand to endure.
They know the working people. That's what we are with the working people. We're the little ones that Washington looks at and disregards. They don't even look at us.
But not everyone here thinks Trump's support will hold.
Some of the Trump supporters that I know of, or actually know, they don't support him anymore after recent events. So I think it's really just extremist people.
Dealing with Trump's long shadow and Trumpism's grip on the party will be a big challenge for Republicans.
I hope he will continue the movement he started. I will absolutely support that movement. I will support those people who take part in that movement. I will absolutely oppose those that don't.
Now, one group that is not rolling out the red carpet for Donald Trump are his neighbors in Palm Beach. They say that Trump signed an agreement back in the early 90s in exchange for some tax breaks that states that guests at Mar-a-Lago can't stay there for more than 21 days out of the year. So they may look to enforce that either at town council or maybe they might go to the courts. One real estate lawyer here pointing out that there are a lot of nice properties for sale in the area. Perhaps Trump should look at some of those. Now, we should also point out Donald Trump does own some other properties in South Florida. So while residents may not want him staying at Mar-a-Lago, he certainly does have a number of options. Adrian?
He does indeed. Stephen D'Souza. Thank you, Stephen.
Now, Biden spoke often today about the many challenges facing his country. The answer, as he puts it, is in unity. But even he admitted such a thing doesn't come easily. Here's the 46th President of the United States, Joe Biden, for the record.
I know speaking of unity can sound to some like a foolish fantasy these days. I know the forces that divide us are deep and they are real. But I also know they are not new. Our history has been a constant struggle between the American ideal that we're all are created equal and the harsh, ugly reality that racism, nativism, fear, demonization have long torn us apart. The battle is perennial, and victory is never assured. Through Civil War, the Great Depression, World War, 9/11, through struggle, sacrifice, and setbacks, our better angels have always prevailed. In each of these moments, enough of us have come together to carry all of us forward. And we can do that now.
So let's turn to our Paul Hunter to look ahead to the work of the next 4 years. Talking of unity at a time, Paul, in a country where patriotism has been weaponized, you know, this is going to be really, really hard. Let's talk about those challenges.
The hard part begins, Adrian. Let's just pick one of the challenges, and let's pick the biggest of the moment, COVID. 400,000 Americans dead, 4,000 Americans dying every day. Joe Biden has set expectations high for what he can do on this. He campaigned hard on how Donald Trump completely mishandled the COVID crisis and that Joe Biden will do a better job. Well, now comes the time where he has to start doing the better job, because starting now, he wears it if things don't get better. You got to remember, Joe Biden doesn't have a magic wand on this. He's making promises. He's talking about 100 million vaccinations in the first 100 days. He's got the federal building mask mandate already, one of his executive orders. But this is a complicated, so far impossible challenge to overcome. No country has done it. Joe Biden says he can. This is where people will start saying, okay, so go do it.
Mm-hmm. Earlier tonight, Paul, Biden had a swearing-in ceremony for his staff. He was really sharp with them. It seems that he warned them that he will fire them on the spot if he finds out that they are disrespecting or demeaning their colleagues. And I'm curious, what did that moment say to you?
You know, all the talk about Joe Biden today has been his message of unity, of changing the tone, turning the page, and being more inclusive than Donald Trump. And didn't that say a lot about that, right? It said that things are different now. This is the way I want to run the White House. This is the way I want to run the country. When you talk about another one of the big problems that he's facing, the cultural and political divide, well, that's the kind of stuff that has to happen to resolve that problem. And you won't resolve any of the other problems this country is facing until you get past that divide. That was a start on that front.
All right, Paul Hunter, thank you for this.
Now, after a complicated 4 years with Donald Trump, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says he looks forward to working with the new administration. In a statement earlier today, he pointed out their similarities, saying, "We will continue this partnership as we fight the global COVID-19 pandemic. We will also work together to advance climate action and clean economic growth." But another word came later from the PM, disappointed over one of the first actions the new president took today, canceling Keystone XL. Here's Evan Dyer with how the new administration and Ottawa will get along.
We're very unhappy with the negotiations and the negotiating style of Canada. We don't like their representative very much.
We're more like family, even than allies. I really mean that. At least that's the way the vast majority of Americans feel about Canada and Canadians. It's like family.
One thing that will change for sure is the tone.
He was so hostile and negative. I'm just so thankful we can move on from that now.
At least we'll be dealing with an adult in the room. So everybody's glad to see him go.
Well, not everyone.
Well, honestly, I was hoping Trump would stay in so we wouldn't have to deal with this.
In the Alberta oil fields, the cancellation of Keystone XL is a blow. Alberta's premier wants to push back.
The government of Canada must impose meaningful trade and economic sanctions.
But that's unlikely. In a statement, Prime Minister Trudeau said, "We are disappointed, but acknowledge the president's decision to fulfill his election campaign promise on Keystone XL." In a different part of Canada, people are celebrating the end of the Trump era.
Well, today
I'm telling you, we shed tears of relief.
In Yukon Territory, the Gwich'in have been fighting to reverse Trump's orders to open the Arctic to oil drilling that would threaten their main source of food, the porcupine caribou herd.
President Biden sent a strong message that the Gwich'in way of life does matter. For that, we're so very happy. There are no words.
President Biden says reversing those orders is a priority. But no job is more urgent than getting control over a virus that's closed the border with Canada.
So how are we going to get that border open? And those plans need to be put in place now.
That David played.
None of that can be sorted out until the Biden administration can get a handle on a pandemic that's killed 400,000 Americans. Evan Dyer, CBC News, Ottawa.
Okay, now let's bring in our chief political correspondent, Rosemary Barton, for more on what this new Biden administration means for Canada. Because, Rosie, we heard two statements from the Prime Minister today, one congratulating the new president and one expressing his disappointment over the cancellation of Keystone. So where does this relationship go next?
Well, it seems to be heading in the right direction, Andrew. The White House confirmed late tonight that Biden's first call to a foreign leader will be to the Prime Minister, to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. They expect Keystone XL to come up as a matter of conversation, but that's a big signal and an important one to Canada. Members of Trudeau's cabinet are also reaching out to their counterparts. Chrystia Freeland, the Deputy Prime Minister, is going to try and get the Vice President on the phone. This is really about forging relationships for the next 4 years, laying out some priorities, and you know, frankly, there are so many policy issues on which both sides agree that the government seems to think the urgency of what was important with the last administration isn't really in this case. And there's lots of big hopes, too, that there'll be an opportunity to work together on climate change, to take a continental approach and see whether American investment in fighting climate change could mean some opportunities for us here in this country.
Right. But OK, what other issues are you looking out for, though? Because, I mean, as the saying goes, the U.S. sneezes, Canada catches a cold.
That's right. So I'm going to give you two more. Buy American, that's an executive order expected on Monday. We don't really know what it means at this stage. Democrats do have a protectionist streak. So will it be about sort of limiting what the government can procure inside its own borders? That could be potentially challenging for Canada. And then the other issue to keep an eye on is China. As you know, of course, we have two Canadians who are arbitrarily detained in China right now, Michael Kovrig, Michael Spavor. There's a hope that a new administration might be able to get them out, whether it be by dropping those extradition charges against Meng Wanzhou, the Huawei executive, whether it be just changing tack in a more concerted effort to apply pressure on China. There's some real hope that things might move on that front too. So a lot of high expectations, I would say, for the new administration for Justin Trudeau.
Okay, chief political correspondent Rosie Barton in Ottawa tonight. Thanks.
Thanks.
And we will have more coverage of today's historic inauguration and the day's other news. There was some right after this. But first, some of the memorable moments from this morning's events.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
Democracy is fragile. And at this hour, my friends, democracy has prevailed.
The duties of the office upon which I am about to enter.
Bajo Dios indivisible con libertad y justicia para todos.
Welcome back. We will return to more news of today's historic inauguration ahead. But first, here at home, Conservative MP Derek Sloan has been kicked out of caucus. So this week it emerged he had accepted a donation from a known white nationalist. In a statement today, party leader Erin O'Toole called that the last straw. The Conservative caucus voted to remove Derek Sloan, he wrote, not because of one specific event, but because of a pattern of destructive behavior towards the Conservative team. Sloan says he will now sit as an independent.
We have an update to a story that we brought you last week now about the first two Canadians diagnosed with the COVID-19 variant that originated in the UK. They are facing public health charges. The CBC's Jonathan Gatehouse has new exclusive details.
Public health officials in Durham have charged a physician with deliberately misleading COVID-19 contact tracers. Dr. Martina Weir and her husband Brian are accused of repeatedly failing to provide accurate information on all persons they may have had contact with during their communicability for COVID-19 and obstructing public health officials by providing false information in relation to the UK variant strain. CBC News has learned that a close family member of the Weirs traveled from London in mid-December to spend Christmas with them. Brian Weir works as a scheduler for Toronto Paramedic Services. Dr. Martina Weir works at 2 Durham Region long-term care homes and 3 Lakeridge Health hospitals. A spokesperson for the long-term care home says Dr. Weir was off work for more than a month and that there are no concerns about risks for residents. An internal review of Weir's employment is now underway.
Very serious.
This bioethicist says the public has a right to know about accusations against healthcare workers.
There's no question that healthcare workers have an elevated moral responsibility. You know, you're in a position of trust with the public.
The UK variant was only detected in the couple by chance when their positive COVID-19 tests were screened for it at random. In a statement to CBC News, lawyers for the Weirs say they will be pleading not guilty and will vigorously defend the case. The couple's first appearance in Provincial Offences Court is scheduled for March 10th. And if convicted, they could each face fines in excess of $5,000. As for Dr. Weir's licensing body, the college says countering public health best practices at any time, including during a pandemic, is not acceptable behavior, and that any complaints will be thoroughly investigated. Jonathan Gatehouse, CBC News, Toronto.
Okay, and still to come, more from the inauguration and a day for historic firsts as Kamala Harris is sworn in as Vice President.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Along with those cheers, the sound of a glass ceiling crashing down. What this moment means for women, especially those of color. Stay with us.
So help you God.
I do.
Congratulations.
A historic day in American politics. The first female, the first black, and the first South Asian Vice President, Kamala Harris, swearing in Georgia's new senators, Reverend Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff. A victory that came about because of the turnout of black voters.
Incredibly excited about the work that's been done on the ground for the last decade to bring us to this point.
And so much credit for that goes to the tireless Stacey Abrams, the longtime Georgia Democratic politician turned activist. Abrams' relentless drive to organize black voters helped deliver both the Senate and the White House to the Democrats. Now, with control of Congress, the Democrats have a clear path forward. Not without challenges, to be sure, but with Kamala Harris in possession of the tie-breaking vote, the Biden administration can push a sweeping agenda through the Senate. And black voters will be watching closely. And joining us now, someone who's made her voice heard loud and clear over the years. Melanie Campbell is head of the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation. Thank you so much for joining us. Let me ask you about the vice president. You must have expectations of her that she would be an advocate, particularly for those causes that you hold dear to your heart.
For sure. And as a black woman, as a woman of Asian descent and Jamaican descent, I think her lived experience is going to be very, very important. So the expectations is not, I don't want to say high expectations as if she's going to walk on water. No politician walks on water. But what we do plan to do is engage them, this new administration, knowing that we have so many fires for them to put out.
So let me ask you this. I mean, how most effectively to get to work then? I mean, from COVID to racial injustice, police brutality, and voter suppression, which is something that we gained a keen new insight into over the last several months on and around the election. So where would you have this administration begin?
One of the things that didn't happen for 4 years is this administration never fully filled the positions that were needed to run the government. Right? You had so many people who were acting. And so I think one of the biggest things right in the door is to get people in place, get the people in the confirmed so they can start working as close to day one as possible. There's legislation that was passed in the House, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, the John Lewis voting. We talk about voting and how important it is, voting rights, a Reform Act. There's those things. There's the immigration reform that needs to take place. There's a lot, but at the same time, that's the job, right? And so it's big shoes that whoever steps up there. And I think that we're going to see, and then just some sense of normalcy in this country, that we don't have to worry about a president who spends their time tweeting all day. We want a president who's going to be quite boring. Get in there and run the government. Get in there and get things done. That's what people are looking for. You know, it's not even to spend time, about what didn't happen. We have this new moment, and we want to make sure that this nation lives up to its ideals. And I'm an optimist, and I also am a realist, and know that not one politician or two politicians are going to get it done.
Melanie Campbell, it's been very good to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate that.
Thank you again.
So we will head back to Washington after the break and look at what's ahead for U.S. President Biden to deliver. How is he going to deliver on his message of unity? But first.
Una nación bajo Dios, indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos.
And that would be Jennifer Lopez breaking with tradition at today's inauguration, choosing to recite part of the Pledge of Allegiance in Spanish, all part of that eye-catching performance that wowed both those in attendance and the millions watching around the world.
So help me God.
This land was made for you and
Congratulations, Mr. President.
And today, we mark the swearing in of the first woman in American history elected to national office. Don't tell me things can't change. We must end this uncivil war. We can do this.
An historic, a moving, and unusual day in the U.S. Capitol today. And just hours after it all ended, the business of government is now well underway. So what is first? Joining me now to provide some analysis, former Obama administration official Krish Omarah-Vignarajah and presidential historian from New York University, but he's also a Canadian, Tim Naftali. Thank you both for joining us. So the shards from the glass ceilings tumbled down over the U.S. Capitol today. Tim, I imagine historians were madly scribbling with so many firsts today. But beyond the first, can you give us a perspective on how you think Joe Biden will lead? Will it match his words or not?
Well, Joe Biden today made clear that he is engaged in a very significant balancing act. His inaugural address, which was poetic and powerful, preyed on themes that Abraham Lincoln used at a time of a divided America. His balancing act is to try to find common ground, to soften the divisions deepened by Donald Trump. And he's going to do this as a way of dealing with COVID, because COVID is the policy area that should be the least controversial. And that area is naturally associated to economic recovery. So what you saw today was a deft attempt at not just talking about unity, but providing a roadmap for a series of common objectives that might soften. It's not going to eliminate the political crisis we're in, but might soften the tensions that Trump left behind.
And Krish, as you listen to that mandate, this broad, ambitious mandate, what is the role for Vice President Harris in that? Usually, again, as an outsider, we look at this and say, okay, a vice president is typically a capable partner. Not necessarily much more, but does that definition change with this administration, Krish?
I think that with President Biden, you have someone who fully appreciates, probably better than anyone, the value of having a true partner in a vice president. Obviously, when he was President Obama's vice president, he tackled massive issues like the economic recovery and TARP, as we call it here. And so I think that you will see President Biden invest and expect Vice President Harris to play a critical role. And the truth is, between the economic recovery and issues related to environmental and racial justice, there is more than enough work for Vice President Harris to play a critical role. And then, of course, on top of that, you have the opportunity for her to play such a consequential role in terms of her tiebreaker position in the divided 50-50 Senate. And so with a bold agenda that President Biden wants to get through, I think you will see her playing an influential role, both within the White House and, of course, up on the Hill.
Tim, one last question to you briefly, if we can. Again, I'm looking for some context and some historical perspective here. When you look at Joe Biden, when you look at the challenges facing him, does this suggest to you any other presidency you've ever seen?
It suggests elements of two presidencies. It suggests the kinds of challenges that Franklin Roosevelt faced. The threat, though, is not from dictatorships abroad, but it's an authoritarian mindset at home, and it's the pandemic. And the other element is what Gerald Ford faced when he was trying to heal a country that was rent by the Watergate scandal, trying to restore trust in government, try to restore remove a sense of cynicism that had developed as a result of the crimes committed by the previous administration. So he's got to show elements of both kinds of leadership. And I think given his background, his extensive experience in Washington, and the fact that Republicans, the older Republicans, like to work with him, I think he's up to the task.
Okay, all right. We will see if the moment rises to the man or the man rises to the moment. Presidential historian Tim Naftali, former Obama administration official Krish Vignarajah, both of you, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we have more coverage of today's historic inauguration after the break. But first, reaction from Montreal's Westmount High School, who just witnessed one of their alumna becoming the Vice President of the United States.
Honestly, I feel really proud of our school and what our school has accomplished, because it really goes to show that if she can do it, imagine the things that we can do.
It's so crazy how she goes to it. Like, she went to our school, like she was in our shoes. It definitely inspires me to do more things in life. And gender or color of skin does not matter at all.
Knowing someone that went here is someone big now in the world and doing amazing things just shows everyone that they can do anything.
I'm Jamie Poisson, and tomorrow on CBC's Daily News podcast, Front Burner, a theme of unity and decency define the historic inauguration of the Biden-Harris administration. But how long will that last? Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
While I may be the first woman in this office, I will not be the last.
Well, a shout out today from the Golden State Warriors to Oakland's favorite daughter, the new Vice President of the United States. Kamala Harris broke barriers and shattered glass ceilings today. The first woman vice president, the first Black American to hold that office, and the first of South Asian descent. To women, especially those of color, this was a day of inspiration. Janella Massa, the host of Canada Tonight, spoke with a few of them as they watched Harris taking the oath.
I, Kamala Davy Harris, solemnly swear.
It's exciting to know that little girls now can see themselves in her and see a woman of color as our vice president and know that they can dream big.
That I will support and defend the Constitution.
It was inspiring to see a woman that could have been my auntie hold the second highest office in the world.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
To see her take that oath, that moment, it was very emotional, very.
My name is Shika Hamilton. I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I'm a longtime supporter of Vice President Kamala Harris.
What was going through your mind as Kamala Harris was being sworn in as Vice President?
The 4 years of just fighting every single day for so many rights and protecting people's rights. It's been like a battle. I mean, we marched and we lobbied and we called and we texted. And so I felt all of that coming forward emotionally, that what a relief to see this new leadership.
My name is Ivani Hamilton. I'm also in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I'm just like Kamala. I'm half Indian and half Black, and I love her so much. I met her when I was a little girl, and throughout my life, I've had her to look up to. Growing up, I felt like I had two identities, and so to see someone who shares my exact background, it has really just shown me that anything is possible and that I can embrace myself. I can embrace both of my cultures and not have to be one or the other.
I'm Joanna Kinga. I'm from Montreal, and I'm a student at McGill University.
What was it like watching Kamala take that oath, as a Black woman in that position for the first time?
Oh, it was incredibly inspiring. One thing that I admire so much about Kamala is definitely her ambition and her drive for good work and hard work.
That I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office upon which I am about to enter.
She is what America is all about, the multiracial culture, not coming from an Ivy League school, and we'll look at people of color or women that walk into a room and have some respect. And that makes me excited.
What I'm waiting for this administration to do is keep the peace and unity and bring back the respect that we had for the Oval Office.
So help me God.
And next on The National, the stunning words from the inauguration's Youth Poet Laureate.
We ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade?
Amanda Gorman's poem and her powerful message next in our moment. But first,
United States Capitol Police Officer, Private First Class Eugene O. Goodman.
A round of applause today for Eugene O. Goodman. He's been hailed a hero ever since he lured a mob away from an unguarded Senate floor during the January 6th riots. Today, he had the honor of escorting Kamala Harris to the inauguration in his new role as acting Deputy Senate Sergeant at Arms.
and so Inauguration Day officially concluded with President Biden and the First Lady watching those fireworks booming through a Washington, D.C. that was otherwise so very quiet throughout all the history that unfolded today. This is their day to celebrate. The sleeves most assuredly get rolled up tomorrow.
Now, if you didn't know the name Amanda Gorman before today, you probably do now. At 22, she is the youngest inauguration poet in U.S. history, and today her poem stunned all who listened. Tonight, we want to let her powerful message play out a little bit longer in our moment.
When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? Quiet isn't always peace, and the norms and notions of what just isn't always just is. And yet the dawn is hours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country and a time where a skinny black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president, only to find herself reciting for one. The new dawn blooms as we free it, for there is always light if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it.
And I will freely admit to being one of those many people who was stunned. I mean, listening and watching to her, I mean, clearly immensely talented, and I even caught myself sort of writing down little snippets of what she was saying this morning when she was speaking. It was really something.
There are teachers all over the world, I suspect, who are going to introduce, units on poetry.
Sure.
With her words. You know, she made it very clear she wants to run for president one day. She's 22. There's an age limit. You have to be at least 35. But this was Joe Biden's inauguration. It was most definitely Amanda Gorman's moment. And that is the National for January the 20th. Good night.
Good night.